Hey everyone, it's Hillel Neuer, and I'm standing here in The Hague outside of Erasmus University's International Institute for Social Studies. And that's because this was the location for serious financial wrongdoing connected to the Hamas terrorist organization and Francesca Albanese. Today we're releasing a damning new report entitled Nothing to Hide, which reveals the fact that a UN report, buried in a UN report, confirmed that the United Nations and Francesca Albanese for the past 16 months were engaged in a massive cover-up over the fact that when she visited Australia and New Zealand in November 2023 to lobby against Israel, to lobby the New Zealand Sovereign Wealth Fund to divest from Israel, she was paid, her travel was paid by external groups, namely pro-Hamas lobby groups like the Australian Friends of Palestine, which hailed Yahya Sinwar for his inspiring words, like the Australian Palestine Network, which justified October 7th as it was happening, and other pro-Hamas groups. They funded her trip. For 16 months, they said that she didn't. Let me walk you through the timeline briefly. On March 28th, a UN committee of human rights experts, basically friends and colleagues of Francesca Albanese, finally acted on a complaint that we launched well over a year ago. And they did so because Albanese was coming up for renewal and many complaints were being filed by different governments. And the Human Rights Council needed a maneuver to justify reappointing her. So they suddenly asked this committee of her peers, these are her fellow rapporteurs who sign her statements, who are anti-Israel, who embrace Albanese, physically embrace her and tweet about it. They suddenly produced a report on March 28th saying that Albanese's fine. She has some tweets that some could interpret as anti-Semitic, but actually we spoke to her and she said she's not anti-Semitic. So nothing to worry about. The fact that she says America is subjugated by the Jewish lobby, that the wildfires in Los Angeles were somehow caused by Israel, other kinds of wild, ridiculous statements. We asked her and she said she's fine, she's not anti-Semitic, she respects the principles of integrity and honesty, and so everything is fine. So the report of March 28th, a committee of her peers who should have recused themselves, was a total whitewash. However, even this panel of Albanese's friends and fans had to acknowledge two damning things. Number one, her trip in November 2023 to Australia and New Zealand was funded by external groups in terms of her travel to multiple cities in Australia and New Zealand. They said the UN paid for her trip to Australia, but within Australia and New Zealand, external groups paid for it. And we presumably know who these external groups are because they wrote in November 2023 that they sponsored her trip, that they supported her trip. And these are the pro-Hamas groups that I mentioned. And it's all in our report. You could see it at unwatch.org. So for 16 months, the UN said, literally, the UN paid for the trip. Nobody else. The UN paid for the trip. Albanese kept saying it. She said, I have nothing to hide. The UN funded my travel. The UN Human Rights Office said it. Secretary General's office said they have nothing to do with it. When in fact, they're the ones who oversee the expenses, their division in Geneva. So we were basically told lies and cover up for 16 months. New UN report reveals what we complained about initially was true. External groups. So our report demands an investigation. We need to know exactly which groups funded Albanese's travel, which of these pro-Hamas groups, how much they paid. Now, why am I standing outside of Erasmus University's International Institute for Social Studies? Because here is where Albanese's research assistant was operating a corrupt scheme. Sarah Troyan is her name, Troian, look it up. She was a research fellow here, and she was Albanese's assistant. And she was the one who would issue invoices to external donors. So the money was coming through here. And I was just in the Dutch Foreign Ministry giving them a letter to their foreign minister to examine about this illicit funding. Which groups? Albanese has spoken at dozens of places, and we assume that she was getting funding for many of these trips, not just the one in Australia. Now, the second thing that the report on March 28th reveals, again, these are Albanese's own friends and colleagues, including the nutcase, Dr. Tlaleng Mofo Kang, who called me an evil scum white man who uses the F word all the time. She's the special rapporteur on health. She was part of this panel. Even they, who embrace Albanese, they acknowledged, number two, that Albanese was issuing honoraria. Now, you all know the ridiculous story of Rabbi Linda Goldstein. This is a fake parody account that is making fun of the absurd anti-Zionist Jews who embrace Hamas. And Linda Goldstein claims to be the chief rabbi of Gaza. There are no Jews in Gaza. They were all removed 20 years ago. The only Jews who are there are those being tortured in the dungeons of Hamas, the Israelis who were kidnapped. But there's a fake account, a parody account called Rabbi Linda Goldstein. It's a very funny account. And Rabbi Linda Goldstein, this fake account, sent an actual email to Albanese's office about a year ago saying, we're having a protest encampment in Columbia University. We need you to speak. We'll give you an honorarium. And Albanese's office, her research assistant, Eleonora De Martin, if I'm getting the name right, a student here at Erasmus University, wrote, Albanese wants to know about the honorarium, how much money. And although she's prohibited from taking money, but you can send the money to the Institute and it'll fund the work of her research fellow, Sarah Troyan, who accompanied and enabled Albanese to Australia, to the UN and other trips. So the whole thing is sort of an illicit scheme. She can't take the money, but they'll send the money to her research assistant. And all of this was happening here. So even this UN report acknowledged this was, quote, inappropriate. So imagine Albanese's best friends, they tweet, we love you, and all these other expressions of solidarity. Even they acknowledged that this use of honoraria, basically getting money for her talks as a UN expert, is wrong. So we're demanding an independent investigation, not a UN body. It's all going to be a cover-up. Calling on the member states. I was just in the Dutch Foreign Ministry, calling on the United States, France, the UK, Germany, Canada, Australia, and other decent countries to support an independent investigation to this illicit financial wrongdoing happening at the United Nations. It was headquartered here at Erasmus University, but is ongoing with Francesca Albanese. Check out our new report. It's on our website, unwatch.org. It's called Nothing to Hide. She said, I have nothing to hide. Turns out she was hiding a lot of wrongdoing for the past 16 months. Thank you for your support and stay tuned.